remember it was the expo, so I think it was actually set aside for structures for particular companies, and then each structure would be given a different purpose afterwards. Maybe just visit it in terms of like seeing like how things can be mapped out, how things can be zoned, come up with a master plan. I mean, Quezon City is so big enough, we can really build a brand new city of Manila within Quezon City itself.
Okay, well, I wouldn't put it that way, but yes, I think I know what you mean.
Right, it's that big, right? And it's got that much potential.
And I think we need to reassure our viewers also that this does not necessarily mean that the green space that it already provides is going to be diminished in any way,
No, not
right?
at all.
Because
You can incorporate it into a brand new city. But also to talk about it, also, it's going to be very difficult because Manila, I mean, if the Sonny Belmonte was completely in charge of it, I guess it would be fine. But creating a national capital would probably require national approval. So unless we, or regional approval even, so unless we have something like a governor of Metro Manila, an elected post to actually look at the entire city as a whole. Right now, we are only doomed to being run by as little fiefdoms as they are. I mean, I say Quezon City shows promise, but until we restructure the power system of the way the entire Metro Manila is run in itself, even what I'm saying right now is just going to be a dream.
Well, as it happens, I do believe that that's supposedly one of the priorities of the next Congress. In fact, to
try to make the MMDA an elected position be the most brilliant thing that we could do for the next. Because the thing is, none of these mayors are going to listen to Bayani Fernando or any head of the MMDA because he's not elected. He's no power. Okay. I mean, once upon a time, it was Imelda, and you just never said no to her, right? And she didn't need to get elected.
Okay. Well, let's go back now to one of the venues figuring in the inaugural of President-elect Noynoy Aquino, the Quirino Grandstand. How appropriate was that a choice?
I guess for its time, it was rather appropriate. But you're right, it was still sort of a temporary solution to something. It was really a sort of a Band-Aid. And it really isn't set out as being some place where a grand event should be happening, actually. The legislative steps, symbolic for me, are, it really looks like a band shell. Actually, it looks like something that you should be seeing like a jazz concert or like a classical concert. But since presidential inaugurations haven't already been happening there, I guess it's completely valid.
Right.
And also considering that the front part has always been a parade ground type area, I guess that's completely valid. But I don't know, it just doesn't, for me, I don't think it's big enough anymore. Unless you completely refurbish it, or take down some of the structures that are around it. With the increasing commercialization of downtown Manila, it really looks like the presidential inauguration is being done in the middle of a mall, you know, or in the middle of some sort of commercialized zone. But since if Manila can't afford, I guess, not to commercialize everything around Quirino Grandstand, this is the fate that we're given.
Okay. Would there have been another place that it could have been held, do you think? Which would have worked maybe a bit better, if not as well?
I don't know. On the balcony of Malacanan Palace, I mean, there's just so many places. All you really need is a proscenium and a big-ass empty space, and you're fine, right? So you can really have it at Luneta Park, you can have it at Quezon Memorial Circle, you can have it in the field of Corregidor. I really think that we're yet to build that area, and that these ceremonies are still yet to be created. We're still a very young country. If you really come to think about it, our ties to foreign powers have really only ended in 1992 with the cancellation of the United States Basis Agreement. So basically 1992 to today, the Philippines is basically, what, 18 years old? So let's cut ourselves some slacks. Let's look at our back plans. Let's look towards the future, not forget the history, study our aesthetics, and I think we'll figure something out soon. I think. But, you know, looking at the past is very important.
Well, what do you tell the people who join your walking tours about the Quirino Grandstand? What do you think is important for them to know? Besides what I probably
more
might
than Quirino Grandstand, just about the whole Luneta Park pier, that, you know, that it is the center of Philippine society. Because Rizal is kilometer zero. But they also don't realize that that too is also a brand new change thing, because kilometer zero was originally the crucifix of Manila Cathedral. So we have this long-standing history of
changing it,
of changing the locations of where our history can possibly be, right? So having said that, I really think we're going to be doing this for quite a long time before we finally settle upon something. And it's not a bad thing.
What is not a bad thing?
To
change.
To change.
Once and for all.
Once and for all. I mean, like, I lament the loss of historical structures, historical thought, but, you know, it's also very good to keep thinking forward, you know, and actually looking at things that possibly be that aren't yet.
Mm-hmm. Who do you think, who should be given the authority to make decisions like this? Who would be in charge of somehow pushing it to the front of the national agenda, to creating this new history that
our
you talk
non-existent city planning office?
Mm.
We should go back to the old system of having a city architect, a city planning office, Bureau of Arts and Culture that all works together as one cohesive, holistic entity. But as I said, if you're having a city that's run by 12 little mayors of 12 little fiefdoms with 12 different dreams, it's very hard to fulfill a cohesive vision for our capital city until we find a cohesive person on top of that. So that person hasn't been elected yet.
And that person's chief role would be making these sort of cross-border decisions affecting infrastructure?
Yeah, I think probably perhaps like the MMDA. That should be one of the qualifications when choosing an MMDA chief. Okay. That this is a man who can actually see an entire city as a whole, how it functions. I think they had there's like, you know, Haussmann. He was given all of the trust to redesign Paris. Burnham given all the trust to redesign New York and Washington, D.C. We need to find somebody who's going to be given that sort of power to really cut swaths and redesign what all went wrong.
Okay, you weren't here last week, Carlos, so I will let you weigh in on whether you think it's all right for President-elect Noynoy to stay on Times Street, to make his official residence Times Street.
Well, I don't know. I understand he thinks that Malacanan is kind of bad luck, but to sort of do it as a sort of a symbolic thing to put into the face of past administrations, I think he's kind of bratty. I think it's kind of like, I think it's just kind of wala lang.
Okay.
I would not advise him to do it simply because it's a private neighborhood. You have neighbors who live too close to you. Security is not lax. But if anything, I would say I would not oppose him moving to someplace else in Quezon City. Because the Quezon City is really where the seat of power is, and sometimes it's easy to get to Quezon City to like a diplomatic event in Makati. I love Malacanang area for all its historicity, but the Malacanang-San Miguel area is completely obsolete when it comes to having a person of power living there. Okay. Roads are too small, security is too bad, you know, you gotta move there. But choosing Times Street is bratty, but choosing to stay in Quezon City is a smart move.
Very well put. Thank you very much for joining us on the show, Carlos.